Labour's policies are a vote of no confidence in the ability of British people to manage their own affairs. We have that confidence. Confidence in freedom and confidence in enterprise. And that is what divides Conservatives from Socialists. Mr. Speaker, our stewardship of the public finances has been better than that of any government for nearly 50 years. It's enabled us to repay debt and cut taxes, and the resulting success of the private sector has generated the wealth and revenues which pay for better social services, to double the amount being spent to help the disabled, to give extra help to war widows, and vastly to increase spending on the National Health Service, over 1 million more patients being treated each year, and there are 8,000 more doctors and 53,000 more nurses to treat them. That is the record of 11.5 years of Conservative government and Conservative principles. Mr. Speaker, all these are grounds for congratulation, not censure, least of all from the Right Honourable Gentleman, who had no alternative policy.
Order.
I will give way to the Right Honourable Gentleman, and then I'd like to move on to say something about Europe, because what the Right Honourable Gentleman said was, to say the least of it, opaque.
Ashley.
The Prime Minister mentioned disabled people, and she is, as always, anxious to be honest with the House. But would she care to give a wider perspective about what has happened to disabled people under her government? Would she care to confirm the official figures that in the first 10 years of her reign, average male earnings in real value rose by 20%, whereas the benefits of disabled people over that period, in real terms, rose 1%. How well did disabled people do out of that?
Mr. Speaker, the Right Honourable Gentleman is very selective indeed in what he chooses. He knows full well that in the last 11 years we have spent twice as much on the disabled, over and above inflation. Not twice as much in cash terms, but twice as much in what the benefits will buy, in particular in mobility and, of course, the Motability Scheme. This has been quite outstanding and has been brought about because we have been able under our policies to create the wealth which created the resources to do that, among other things. Now, Mr. Speaker, over the last 11 years, this government's had a clear and unwavering vision of the future of Europe and of Britain's role in it. It's a vision which stems from our own deep-seated attachment to parliamentary democracy and this government's commitment to economic liberty, to enterprise, to competition and to a free market economy. No government in Europe has fought more resolutely against subsidies, state aids to industry and protectionism, against unnecessary regulation and bureaucracy, against increasing unaccountable central power at the expense of national parliaments. No government has fought more against that in Europe than this one. We've fought attempts to put new burdens and constraints upon industry, such as the social charter, which would take away jobs, in particular part-time jobs. For us, part of the purpose of the community is to demolish trade barriers and to eliminate unfair subsidies so that we can all benefit from a great expansion of trade both within Europe and with the outside world. The fact is that Britain has done more to shape the community over the past 11 years than any other member state. It is Britain which is leading the reform of the common agricultural policy, getting surpluses down, putting a ceiling on agricultural spending. We have been the driving force towards a single market, which when it is completed will be the most significant advance in the community since the Treaty of Rome itself. And we've done more than any other government to resist protectionism, to keep Europe's market open to trade with the rest of the world, and to make a success of the GATT negotiations. Mr. Speaker, we have worked for our vision of a Europe which is free and open to the rest of the world, and above all to the countries of Eastern Europe as they emerge from the shadows of socialism. It wouldn't help them for Europe to become a tight-knit little club, tied up in regulation and restrictions. They deserve a Europe where there's room for their rediscovered sense of nationhood and a place to decide their own destiny after decades of repression. And with all this, Mr. Speaker, we have never hesitated to stand up for Britain's interests. The people of Britain want a fair deal in Europe, particularly over our budget contribution. We have got back nearly £10 billion, which would otherwise have been paid over to the European community under the arrangements negotiated by the party opposite when they were in power. Indeed, what sort of vision do they have, Mr. Speaker? None, according to the right honourable gentleman. They want a Europe of subsidies, a Europe of socialist restrictions, a Europe of protectionism. They want it because that's how they would like to run, or is it to ruin this country? Every time we've stood up and fought for Britain and British interests, the front bench opposite have carped and criticised and moaned. And on the central issues of Europe's future, they will not tell us where they stand. Do they want a single currency? The right honourable gentleman doesn't even know what it means or its consequences for Britain. Doesn't it?
Order!
Absolute nonsense. It was appalling. So he says it's a hypothetical question. It's not going to be a hypothetical question, and someone has to go there and argue knowing what it means. Are they prepared to defend the rights of the United Kingdom Parliament? No, for all that the right honourable gentleman said. For them, it's all compromise. Sweep it under the carpet. Leave it for another day. It might sort out or sort itself, in the hope that people of Britain will not notice
Order!
happening to them and how the powers would be gradually slipping away. This government will continue to take a positive and constructive approach to the future of Europe. We welcome economic and monetary cooperation. Indeed, no other member state has gone further than Britain in tabling proposals for the next stage, including the hard ECU. But our proposals would work with the market and give people and governments real choice.